Well, Merry Christmas, Knick fans. You got your dream, you got your wish. Everything came true this morning. It was really funny because I didn't think Phill Jackson was going to get fired, but to wake up to that ESPN alert saying, breaking news, the New York Knicks have come to terms with the release of Phill Jackson, or parting ways, or however it was worded. And I especially appreciate the breaking, like when I actually get excited when it's ESPN breaking, like the first words on next to the notification are breaking, because I have subscribed to like I get like MLB, I get like sports news sent to me, but I also get gambling, and I get gambling and fantasy sports, as well as European soccer updates. And I get, like, especially overnight, because that's when all the European soccer news breaks, is like early morning for us. It's like midday there in Europe. So I usually wake up to like 7, 8, 9 different ESPN updates. And usually, especially because right now it's basically free agency. It's called it's a transfer window. So guys can be sold and get, go to different places. And there's all the rumors. It's hot stove on steroids, because you have guys going all over the world. Guys get bought by some of the bigger clubs, and it's guys no one's ever heard of before, so then it's like everyone's jumping to figure out who this guy is, and it's a lot more tabloid and drama filled too. But to wake up to that this morning to see one of the updates I had a breaking next to it really got me excited, and to see that. And for the record, I am not a New York Knicks fan. I'm a Miami Heat fan. I grew up a Bulls fan. I was a Bulls fan up until last year. And yeah, so I'm a brand new Heat fan. I wasn't even LeBron James Heat fan. I'm like one full season under my belt. The reason being, me and my friends have a rule that one time in your life, and especially if you grew up rooting for a team just because your parents or family grew up rooting for a team, then you get like one out. For every major sports, you get like one major, like, all right, I'm leaving this team. I used one earlier in I think by the time you're like 10 is when you gotta be like 10 to 13, like, that's really the age when you have to settle on a team. I originally grew up a Dodgers fan because we were home. Albuquerque was home, the AAA home for the Dodgers for like 30 years up until I think 99. When our AAA team was sold, the owners, like, middle of the night, sold the team to somebody else who was then going to move the team to Portland, Oregon. They went on to become the Portland Beavers. But up until then, for years, we're talking Ron Cey, Tommy Lasorda, Pedro Martinez, Mike Piazza, Raul Mondesi, Rick Sutcliffe. Rick Sutcliffe still owns, like, a pitching record for Albuquerque baseball. Like, all these guys came through, and it was just they used to call it, Dodger Town out west. I forgot, but there was like Dodger Town, New Mexico is what, the Dodgers labeled this. And we were even their AAA affiliate again from, I believe, like 2009 to about 2013, when the team got sold, when Magic Johnson and company bought the team, and they weren't really happy with being here in Albuquerque because of the high elevation. They felt like it was ruining some of their pitchers and then not giving them realistic numbers on some of their hitters, because their hitters were having ridiculous numbers for playing at such a high elevation. For those of you that don't know and don't live in Albuquerque and are listening to this somewhere else, Albuquerque actually has a higher elevation than Denver does. But Denver's a bigger, better city than Albuquerque, so it's the Mile High City. We're just a bunch of bums in Albuquerque. And that's nobody else's fault but our own. But anyways, I digress from my digression of... So I grew up, and then my favorite player growing up was Mike Piazza. Mike Piazza gets traded from the Dodgers to the Marlins at the time, and I was heartbroken. It was my first real heartbreak as a sports fan as a kid. And I said, all right, well, I'm never going to like the Dodgers again. I hate them. I'm done with them. And I didn't know anything about the Marlins. I didn't even know Miami had a baseball team at the time. Oh, I'm sorry, they were Florida, but it was Miami. Whatever, you get the point. To make a long story short, I I was just like, oh, whatever. And then my dad was rooting for the Yankees at the time because Darryl Strawberry was his favorite player growing up. Darryl Strawberry played for the Dodgers as well, rehabbed here in Albuquerque, to tie that all in together. And then we just kind of stuck on the Yankees, and that became our team through good and bad. 2005, I mean, I've been a Yankee fan since, I would say, 98, 99, somewhere around there. But anyways, the thing was always, when you grow up, like me and my friends, as we got older, like I switched from being, my family are all Cowboys fans, and I just never felt any real connection to the Cowboys in the early 2000s. For years, I didn't even have a favorite football team, but I followed college football religiously, and I was a Miami Hurricanes fan. Still am. It's probably still my great, besides the Yankees, it's probably my biggest thing I follow is Miami Hurricanes football. But I didn't have a team, and then all of a sudden the Baltimore Ravens have Ray Lewis and Ed Reed and Willis McGahee going to the Ravens was really what did it over. It's when I said, oh, you know what, I think I'm going to become a Ravens fan. I became a Ravens fan still. So me and my friends, another friend who grew up a Cowboys fan too, and he was like, what the hell, I don't like the Cowboys. And he made a big mistake of then going to the Jets. But we kind of came up with this rule back then when we were in high school. It was like, hey, you can get one time on every major sport, every person should be able to go, all right, you know what, I'm using this moment right now to revoke my fandom from this team, and I'm going to take my talents to this team. And I grew up a Bulls fan. I don't watch NBA religiously. It's not necessarily my thing, but I still follow it and keep up with it because I'm a big sports fan. And, still got to have that team you root for. So, I have been a Bulls fan, years. There was those years, the Derrick Rose years, where everything looked good and up and the up and up, and maybe they could beat LeBron. And then I still love Derrick Rose. I still, in my heart, I have a soft spot for him, even through all the injuries and everything that people make fun of him for. I feel bad for the guy. He was my favorite player for many of those years. And then finally, the last offseason, when they got rid of Rose, they got rid of Noah, they signed Rondo, and that whole thing just made, I was just like, you know what, I'm done with this team. This team has it just really felt, and they got rid of Thibodeau, which really made me upset because I like Tibbs. So when that happened, I said, all right, I'm going to take this time to assess my sports fandom. And I decided at that point, since I listened, my favorite radio show is the Dan Le Batard Show, and I'm big Miami Hurricanes fan. So for years, when I wanted Miami Hurricane coverage, I would listen to Miami Sports Talk Radio. So I've kind of fallen in love with Miami throughout the years. And then I fell in love with Dan Le Batard Show because it was a big, they're Miami guys. And they do a local hour before they do their national show on ESPN Radio every day. That's just Miami. And I started listening to that over the last couple of years, and I love that. And I've just fallen in love with the city of Miami. So throughout the years of listening to them just talk about the Heat, and Heat culture and all this stuff and how great Pat Riley is, they brainwashed me. So I said, you know what? I'm a Heat fan. I'm in. So... But the Knicks were always the other team that I was like, you know what, if I wasn't a Bulls fan, I'd be a Knicks fan because I'm a New York Yankees fan. And there's just something about the Knicks. There's something that always kind of like, I felt like pulled me towards them. Like I want to be a fan. And I remember when Phill Jackson got that job, I was just like, this is it. They're in a couple years there. I wasn't thinking they're going to win an NBA title because of how the landscape of the NBA's been, but I was like, they're going to be good. They could, I was thinking like a solid number 2 behind whoever LeBron was playing for at the time. Like, they should be right there 2 or 3 right after LeBron and whoever LeBron's playing if he's still in the East. For to have that to like come nowhere even close, and all the, the failed Carmelo Anthony stuff and not getting Steve Kerr to be a head coach there, and now all the Porzingis stuff and the exit meeting thing with Porzingis. And I just to hear I always listen to like Knicks fans and see like Yankee fans talking about the Knicks and how just devastating it is that they're, it's a big, they're not really a storied franchise. They have a lot of history with that team, but they're not necessarily like a storied franchise, but they have huge diehard fans and one of the, the biggest market in the United States, playing in one of the most storied venues in the United States, and to just keep wheeling out crap year after year after year has always been like a weird thing. So I'm cheering up for them on the up and up. I don't think anything's going to be happening because it just doesn't. There's no track record since the 90s that gives you any hope that maybe things are going to turn around relatively soon. Chris Paul going to Houston. It sounds interesting. I think the best I heard this described by somebody was Ryan Russillo when he said today on ESPN Radio that, yeah, this doesn't make them even close to being able to contend with Golden State, but it's all about it's an arms race, an NBA's arms race. If you can bring the guys in and get the players to come there and just stock up on as many good players, elite players as you can, and then just go from there and then figure it out. So bringing Chris Paul in, yeah, him and Harden's styles are going to clash because this last season you saw James Harden really become a distributor, and he went from 7 assists a game to 11 this past season, and just a really tremendous season from him too. If James Harden wasn't just playing out of his mind every night in Oklahoma City, James Harden easily could have been the NBA MVP. And it's crazy to think that Oklahoma City, if somehow things would have worked out in a different way, could have Russ Westbrook MVP, James Harden MVP, and Kevin Durant MVP all on the same team at the same time, but it just didn't work out that way with Harden leaving and then eventually Durant. I mean, that's an odd thing to think about. I think people kind of forget about that because Harden's been gone for so long, but all those dudes played together. Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see. I know the Gordon Hayward stuff, I've got my fingers crossed that he's going to come to Miami. Depending on who you hear from different days, I know Miami's in the mix for a couple guys. Blake Griffin, I'm not so excited about Blake Griffin. I would rather have Hayward, and then, who knows what's going to happen with Paul George. We'll see. The NBA free agency is fun. It's what baseball was there for a while, and that's kind of tapered off. And I'm still thinking goal. Is LeBron going to try to pull in Paul George? And then there's people saying if Paul George goes and plays, I think it was Stephen A. who said if he goes and plays with LeBron, he's not going to LA like everybody thinks, because LeBron's got that effect on guys, and he's the best player in the world, and you want to be there, you want to be playing with him. Wow. So that was this podcast, NBA talk on the Doug's 28 podcast, NBA hot stove heating up. I don't think I've talked about sports so far yet on this podcast, and that's a big part of my life, so we'll be getting into lots and lots of that, and we'll see in the next coming days what happens. Oh, I completely forgot what I was going to talk about today that I teased. I had a tease from yesterday's show, but that's fine, because maybe you didn't listen, maybe you don't even know, or maybe you forgot already, or maybe this NBA hot stove stuff was so hot that it caught your attention. You couldn't resist the smell of the burning hot stove. All right, well, thank you again for listening. Remember, YouTube, SoundCloud, Doug's28, SoundCloud.com/Doug's28. You can look up Douglas Case on YouTube. I got a YouTube channel. You can listen if you're maybe at work on your computer. You can listen that way. You can download it straight from the Spreaker website, Spreaker.com/Doug Show. And yeah, coming soon to iTunes this weekend. We'll be there as well. But thank you for listening as always, and God bless.